In its latest move to escalate mass deportations, the Trump administration is granting ICE access to the personal data of nearly 79 million Medicaid enrollees, including home addresses and ethnicity details, under a new agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services. A DHS spokesperson tells NBC News this is about ensuring undocumented immigrants don't access Medicaid, even though it's already illegal for undocumented immigrants to receive benefits. Immigration advocates are calling it a dangerous overreach, warning that it turns healthcare records into a tool for surveillance and deportation. It's just the latest example of ICE's increasingly aggressive tactics. In recent weeks, the agency has expanded its reach by demanding landlords turn over leases, rental applications, and ID cards of tenants, preventing detained immigrants from getting bond hearings, and firing immigration judges in order to fast-track deportations. Joining us now, David Beer, Director of Immigration Studies at the Cato Institute. David, welcome back to The Weekend. Let's go back to the beginning. 79 million Medicaid records of Americans now being made available to ICE. Why should the American people be concerned about that?
Well, what the hell is ICE doing with Medicaid information?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are U.S. citizen children, really, who they are targeting. If you look at their U.S. their birthright citizenship order, it's about stripping U.S. citizens of their U.S. citizenship so they're eligible for deportation. It is setting up a scenario where those enrollees, they're U.S. citizens, not the illegal immigrants aren't enrolling in Medicaid. They're already banned from Medicaid by federal law. There's already a process to verify people's citizenship status before they get Medicaid. So it's not about that. It's about getting the records of these kids who they want to deport. They've gone to the U.S. Supreme Court to try to get permission to deport them and round up entire families, including these American kids, and send them to countries that they've never lived in, ever. Yeah. And that really typifies the Trump administration's mass deportation strategy, which the first stage of it is stripping people of their legal status and U.S. citizenship to open them up to deportation. The second stage is to detain people without a reasonable basis. And then the third stage is to deport without due process. And that's exactly what we've seen with these Alien Enemy Act deportees to Venezuela or to El Salvador and then ultimately to Venezuela, because that is their strategy. They understand they can't follow the Constitution and actually accomplish the goals that they've set out, which is millions and millions of people being rounded up and removed from this country, even if they have not committed any crimes or other offenses in the United States.
Yeah, you know, the government says that the ICE will only have this information Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. They can't download it, and they only have it until September. So that's something that I want to toss that out there.
Analog world.
People exactly. You know, one of the things that I have been struck with, we may have even talked about it on this show with you, is that we've constantly seen people do what they were supposed to do, give the government information about themselves while they're living here and trying to go through the immigration process. People that are going to the immigration hearing, you know, thinking that, you know, that at some point at the end of that is going to be the promise of some kind of status, right? The judge saying, actually, you're good. Go leave. There's no case here. Those people leaving, there was pictures of someone smiling as they were leaving because she thought she was good to go. And ICE was standing outside the door waiting on her. We have been telling people that if they do what they're supposed to do in this country, you follow the rules, you become an immigrant. You can become an American citizen, you can become a green card holder. That's not actually the case anymore.
Yeah, look, what the Trump administration is doing, and this really goes to the last stage, right? What I talked about, the deport without due process. Yeah. They don't want people to have their day in court. They don't want people to get a hearing. They don't want people to have the opportunity to prove their case. And so what they're doing is having the judges dismiss these cases and then arresting the people and trying to deport them, again, without giving them their day in court. That is the strategy. Again, it fits in with the stripping people who already have their status,
and it's not about criminals,
status or parole. And right. It's not about criminals or public safety. They are specifically targeting the people who are following the process, who are signing up to have their names be vetted against anything that we have. They're willing to do anything to achieve legal status in this country. And the Trump administration's response to that is sending them to foreign prisons, is rounding them up and detaining them and deporting them. This is how the Trump administration is carrying out its chaotic and disorderly mass deportation campaign.
And let's have a listen to what California Governor Gavin Newsom had to say about the removal of 2,000 National Guard troops from Los Angeles and the impact that those troops have had on Los Angeles. Watch this.
Talking to members of the community, they feel like democracy is already gone. They feel like authoritarianism's already come to their community. They're not even walking the streets. We were here not just in businesses that are empty. The entire shopping mall's empty. Wrecking the economy, destroying families, destroying generational businesses. That's what's being torn asunder by Donald Trump and Stephen Miller.
And I wanted to play that because that is the natural progression from what David was talking about.
In a significant escalation of its immigration enforcement strategy, the Trump administration has authorized U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, to access the personal data of approximately 79 million Medicaid enrollees, including sensitive information such as home addresses and ethnicity details. This unprecedented move, facilitated through a new agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, was confirmed by a Department of Homeland Security, DHS, spokesperson in an exclusive statement to NBC News. The administration claims the data access is intended to prevent undocumented immigrants from accessing Medicaid benefits, which federal law already prohibits. However, immigration advocates and policy experts have condemned the policy as a dangerous overreach, warning that it transforms healthcare records into tools for surveillance and deportation. David Beard, director of immigration studies at the Cato Institute, appeared on NBC's The Weekend to discuss the implications of this policy. Beard emphasized that the data-sharing initiative primarily targets U.S. citizen children, particularly those with birthright citizenship, as part of a broader strategy to strip legal status and facilitate deportations. These are U.S. citizens, not undocumented immigrants, who are enrolling in Medicaid, Beard stated, noting that existing federal laws already bar undocumented individuals from receiving such benefits. He argued that the administration's true aim is to gather records to deport entire families, including American-born children, to countries they have never lived in. This move aligns with a reported push to challenge birthright citizenship, with the administration seeking Supreme Court approval to deport U.S. citizens in certain cases. The Medicaid data-sharing agreement is just one facet of ICE's increasingly aggressive tactics. In recent weeks, the agency has demanded that landlords provide leases, rental applications, and tenant identification documents to aid in identifying undocumented immigrants. Additionally, ICE has prevented detained immigrants from accessing bond hearings and has dismissed immigration judges to expedite deportations, effectively bypassing due process. Beard outlined the administration's three-stage deportation strategy: stripping individuals of legal status, detaining them without reasonable basis, and deporting them without judicial oversight. They understand they can't follow the Constitution and accomplish their goals of deporting millions, Beard said, highlighting cases where deportees, including those sent to Venezuela and El Salvador, were targeted despite having no criminal record. Critics argue that this policy undermines the trust of immigrants who comply with legal processes. Beard pointed out that individuals attending immigration hearings in good faith, expecting a chance at legal status, are increasingly met with immediate detention by ICE agents outside courtrooms. The promise of becoming a green card holder or citizen is no longer the case, Beard said, describing a system where compliance leads to deportation rather than resolution. The administration's tactics have sparked widespread fear, with communities reporting a chilling effect on civic participation and economic activity. California Governor Gavin Newsom recently addressed the broader impact of these policies, particularly the removal of 2,000 National Guard troops from Los Angeles, which he linked to the administration's immigration crackdown. In a statement aired on the weekend, Newsom described the devastating effects on local communities, where fear of deportation has led to empty businesses, deserted shopping malls, and economic disruption. They feel like democracy is already gone, like authoritarianism has come to their community, Newsom said, attributing the chaos to the policies of President Donald Trump and his advisor Stephen Miller. The DHS spokesperson clarified that ICE's access to Medicaid data is limited to business hours, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and will expire in September, with no data downloading permitted. However, advocates remain skeptical, arguing that these restrictions do little to mitigate the policy's chilling effect. As the Trump administration continues its mass deportation campaign, the use of healthcare data as a surveillance tool marks a new frontier in immigration enforcement, raising urgent questions about privacy, due process, and the rights of U.S. citizens caught in the crossfire.